So those of us who have graduated college probably can look back at our senior year of college and remember it being a stressful year, right? It is for most people. Just because you have to really think about what is it that comes next? What am I going to do when I graduate? How do I make sure I don't go broke or end up in my parents' basement living on their futon, so on and so forth. So that was certainly true for me. And I knew I wanted to go into something business related, preferably in the healthcare field. That's what I loved. That's what I was really interested in. I had a love for strategy and marketing. And so I was looking at jobs here and there, trying to put my hat in whatever ring I could. And I remember this company was coming to my campus. I went to a school called Assumption College in Worcester, Massachusetts. And they were holding open interviews, right? Which means any student could kind of show up, sign up for an interview slot, and interview for one of the jobs that they were hiring for. And so they were hiring for two specific roles. One was implementation of their software, and second was supporting customers who had their software. And I remember reading these job descriptions and saying, hell no, right? These are not jobs that I want. But I ventured onto this company Meditech's website and saw that they had this marketing role. And as I'm reading it, I'm lighting up. I'm like, man, this would be perfect, right? I'd be traveling the country, giving pitches and helping the sales process and getting into different hospital and company strategies. I'd learn the ins and outs of marketing and persuasion and public speaking. I'd be building the skills that I really want. This is a perfect fit for me, and I really want it. But I'm reading this job description, and it says, only apply if you have at least 5 years of work experience. Right, so obviously I didn't have that just coming out of college, but I said, fuck it. I'm going to show up to the interview tomorrow and say, I want to be in marketing. So I did. I showed up, sat in front of this interviewer, and the guy says, so which of those two roles are you applying for? And I said, neither. I want to be in marketing. He said, you can't be in marketing. Well, not yet anyway. You need at least 5 years of work experience to join our marketing team. We've never hired anybody with less than 5 years work experience. I said, I recognize that. But give me a chance to tell you why I think I'd be the perfect fit for this marketing role and why I would excel doing this job. So he kind of threw his hands in the air. He said, all right, fine. I'd love to hear what you have. So I made my pitch. I had practiced it the night before, and it rolled off my tongue perfectly. And so he asked me some back and forth questions, and by the end of the interview, he said, I can't believe I'm doing this. This is completely unprecedented. But I'm going to recommend that you move forward in the process and have an additional interview. Well, it turns out I had to go through 4 additional interviews and even give a presentation to their hiring board who wanted to see this kid coming out of college that wanted to do marketing. But I got the position. And thereby, I really moved my career 5 years forward, right? I never had an entry-level position. I was working with people who were far older than me. People at the company were calling me the test subject to see whether a college grad could really handle this job or not, which I did. I did well. But I reflect back on this situation, right, or this experience. And I think about, well, why was I successful getting that job? And I think the rules and the keys that I found are really applicable to anybody who's trying to be aggressive and move forward and outcompete in their career, no matter what role or career or industry you want to be in. So the first kind of key of 3 is avoid the hype. Avoid the hype. Don't allow yourself to be intimidated by a job description or by a company's brand. Right? Recognize that there are professional marketers employed by just about every organization and company out there, and their job is to make that company or organization look more impressive than it might actually be. Right? So learn how to be able to read between the lines, avoid the hype, and don't be intimidated by something you're reading on paper or by the reputation of an organization, company, or person. That's really important, whether you're applying to a company, a school, or anything else. Avoid the hype. Second, push boundaries. Push boundaries. Don't be afraid to break the rules. Right? So according to that job description at Meditech, applying as a college senior was against the rules. That wasn't allowed, but I applied anyway. So don't be afraid to push boundaries a little bit and go after what you really want. Now, naturally, there are limitations to this. If you're 26 years old, you're not going to be president of the United States tomorrow. You have to be somewhat reasonable, but don't be afraid to push those boundaries. And third, you must be able to know how to sell yourself. You have to know how to sell yourself. Right? You have to be able to persuade your audience, whether your audience is a client, a hiring manager, an admissions officer, or anybody else, your future boss, that you are worth gambling on and that you're worth the risk, especially if you're trying to aim a little beyond the boundary, right? If you're going for a position that on paper you might not deserve. Be able to pitch yourself and sell yourself. That is the key, because persuasion is always going to trump requirements. If you can really persuade that you're worthy of an opportunity, that will trump whatever rules they're trying to live by. So I applied these things throughout my career as I continued to grow as a professional. Right? So a couple years up the road, I decided to apply to the Cornell School of Business, and I had less years of work experience than they typically called for. I worked for a no-name company and was competing against people who worked for JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs and Google and Apple, right? I worked for Meditech, a company that most people had never heard of before. And I didn't go to a big Ivy League school. I went to Assumption College, again, a school that most people outside of the New England area have never heard from. And I'm competing against people who went to Princeton and Yale and Harvard and all the big names that we've all heard of. But I didn't allow myself to get intimidated. And I pushed the boundaries, right? So I applied, even though I didn't meet a lot of their requirements, but I applied anyway. Not only did I get accepted, but I was able to earn myself a full tuition scholarship to Cornell because I was able to pitch myself and why that school was a great fit for me and me for it. Another example, a couple years ago, I really wanted to work for this company, Stacy Blackman Consulting, which is an organization that helps people trying to get into the top business schools, right? They help with their essays and personal brands and resumes and interview skills, things like that. It's a role that I knew I would be really good at. But Stacy Blackman is the best in the business, right? She's super respected, and rightly so. Right? She's very well followed. Her team has a great track record of success. So it would have been easy for me to be intimidated applying to Stacy Blackman. And there was some temptation going through that process of saying, well, maybe I'll apply to one of her competitors who wasn't quite as impressive, right? I applied anyway, made my pitch, sold myself, and I've worked for Stacy Blackman now for a couple years, and I've been wildly successful. The first year I got 21 out of 22 of my clients into one of the top schools in the country. This past year, 23 out of 25. I don't know if I'm the top consultant at Stacy Blackman, but there can't be too many other people ahead of me because I've had a great track record of success, right? So those are my 3 keys that you have to follow if you want to be aggressive and outcompete in your career. And a lot of people are out there thinking it's unfair to try to outcompete. It's unfair to push boundaries. It's unfair to break the rules a little bit. You are not in line for a Happy Meal at Burger King here. This is your life. This is your career. If you can persuade people that they should allow you to skip the line and you feel really qualified for that next level up, go for it. Go after what you want. Have confidence. Avoid the hype and push those boundaries. Push the rules. And with regards to being able to sell yourself, that is an integral skill that you have to have whether you're applying for a new position or trying to succeed within it. Right? The ability to persuade and influence and sell yourself is an irreplaceable skill that you'll never succeed without. Which reminds me, I have a free training on the power of influence and how to persuasively influence and persuade your audience. It's free. It's like an hour-long training. I'll post the link here beneath this video, but it's really helpful, useful information that I highly recommend to anybody who's looking to better or improve their skills in persuasion, influence, and really leadership. So I encourage you to check that out if that'd be helpful to you. So again, those are my 3 tips. Work on implementing those as quickly as you can, and you'll find more success more quickly in your career regardless of what field you're in.